Spirituality group. So, outline a quick discussion about mission evangelism. Let's look at the spirituality group. Has somebody got that to come up and report back from that mark? Thanks very much.
Okay, we basically started with asking questions. So we've got 4 questions that we went through. First one was how do we reflect Jesus in digital space, his teaching and his compassion. And started off by thinking about if God speaks to us in poetic grunts, if you like, of art and of symbolism and metaphors. We have the perfect scenario in digital media to be able to be very creative. And how can we use those things in order to, again, like the Bible group, to be able to tell the stories of Jesus, to be able to tell the grandeur of Jesus, etc. So we talked about pictures, we talked about images, we talked about Second Life and some of the various places that have been created with the Second Life, the labyrinth, which starting to take imagery within icons, iconic pictures within cyberspace. And then we also started to talk about the idea of can we reflect Jesus' teaching in compassion, for example. How can we show compassion? How can we give a hug? How can we sit with people and cry with people in a digital world? And we talked around those things. So we challenged things like the myth of having a 10 megapixel camera makes you a photographer, and having a video camera makes you a TV producer. We were thinking about how people are working together to create these kind of images. So we talked about Notre Dame and how that's been created in 3D out of a lot of people adding their pictures of Notre Dame and in a collaborative space. Obviously the use of YouTube and using YouTube to express Jesus and Jesus' teaching. And then we finished off with kind of the best advert or the best way of encapsulating who Jesus was by living it, and how can we live Jesus on the internet. And some great discussions going on there. Okay, second question, how do the philosophies that drive technology and our participation in online activity relate to our spirituality? So basically that was encapsulated by can there be a digital spirituality? And we were thinking that some of the values of Web 2 and open source seem very similar to the kingdom values, but they don't seem very compatible to the church's values. Okay, and we talked about how before Web 2 can be integrated into, or church can start getting integrated into Web 2 on the internet, maybe Web 2 needs to be integrated into church in real life. And the idea of discussing and giving people the ability to go out and pioneer and to follow their passions, etc. And to talk with each other and find out about each other's opinions, rather than being a top-down kind of hierarchy that you're instructed to do stuff. And then great little discussion on the philosophy of the web is about subversion, showing a sense of marginality. And that really should be part of what Christianity is about. But it's something that's kind of been sidelined in the church, and we've become a bit domesticated. Amen. Church wants to put a lid on chaos, and yet beautiful stuff comes out of chaos, and we've seen that in the work that we do in our various online communities. Question 3. Ethos of Web 2 seems to be antithesis of much of Christian spirituality. Orthodoxy, sound teaching and regulated Christianity. Is there a dishonest or naive? Is it dishonest or naive for Christians to use Web 2? And we thought about Newbigin was mentioned earlier, and the idea of engaging with dialogue with others and taking on others' ideas to become different, so that we change. And it seems the Web 2 is something which can stimulate that, can bring that out in people, that we can listen to people, we can take on views, and we can change in our own life. And we also looked at the idea of whether there was a possibility of a pure monastic community in digital space. Quite excited about that idea, and the idea of that 24/7 have got their little, well not little, but their boiler rooms and their punk monks, and how we could engage with that in virtual space, and talked a little bit about what was going on in those realms at the moment. And lastly, question 4, how can we facilitate people encountering Jesus online? How do we ensure that people can be challenged to move on in their faith online? Is it easy to walk away from an online community? Oh, sorry, that's part of the discussion. We discussed about, particularly some of us, how our experience, to start off with, we were thinking, it's kind of Web 1, where we've been, I explained it, do a little bit of work with the Youth for Christ labyrinth, and that enabled me to pull something down and then experience God through the messages that we were being given within that rich media environment. But then we were thinking about how we engage with people, and how just a word that somebody said in a Skype discussion is actually bringing God to us, and Him working in our lives through the interaction of those people. Many times in Second Life, many times on various social medias, and so that's God being experienced in those areas and encountered. And we were talking about spiritual moments and how that happens through people within the internet environment.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks again to that group. More thoughts from that group online, and we use the mission group.